In this topic, we will look at the Prince2 planning process. Prince2 provides techniques and processes of how to think about planning in a project. The planning approach is influenced by the Prince2 principle, focus on products. So as part of the planning process, it's important to firstly identify what the products are, then break down those products at the project level and at the product level, and then think about how those products or subproducts being created might be dependent on one another. Prince2 provides some strategies to be able to visualize the products within a project. Product-based planning is a defining feature in Prince2. It involves starting with what's going to be delivered, followed by how this is going to be achieved. It is one of the key aspects of the 7 steps in producing a Prince2 plan. Here are the 7 steps of producing a Prince2 plan. The first step is to design the plan and determine the format the plan will take. The second step is to define and analyse the products, which is fundamental to the Prince2 planning process. This is followed by identifying activities and dependencies, preparing estimates, preparing the schedules, analysing risks, and finally documenting the plan. There are a number of things that need to be considered and tools that can be used in each of these steps, which will be discussed in the slides to follow. As mentioned previously, the second step, which is define and analyse products, underpins the whole planning process for Prince2. It's broken down into a number of steps to assist with cataloguing products, describing them, and analysing their interrelationships. This step uses a technique known as product-based planning, which will be discussed further in slides to follow. When designing the plan, it's important to select the right planning tools and techniques and decide how that plan will be presented and who it will be provided to. It could be presented as a Word document, a PowerPoint document, and/or a presentation. These things need to be considered and decided upon before the work begins on preparing the plan. Then we need to define and analyse the products. This, being the second step, is where the product-based planning technique is applied that will be described a little later. Identifying activities and dependencies is the third step in the planning process. Activities can be identified in 2 ways. The first is by making a separate list of the activities from the product flow diagram. The second method is by taking the products from the product breakdown structure and creating a work breakdown structure, WBS, to define the activities. Here is a WBS definition from the PMBOK guide. It's a hierarchical decomposition of the total scope of work to be carried out by the project team to accomplish the objectives of the project and create the required deliverables. I also refer you to watch the video, which provides further information on what a work breakdown structure is. The only way to successfully identify activities and create a WBS is by decomposition. Dividing and subdividing the project scope and deliverables into smaller manageable parts. Breaking down tasks and decomposing tasks into more manageable tasks or parts is key to achieving success in a project, regardless of how small or large that project is. So the work breakdown structure, as listed in the second point, structures the work as a hierarchy of work packages, activities, and tasks. Listed here are some characteristics of a work breakdown structure to ensure that once created, it represents a correct and complete set of activities that need to be carried out in a project. Here is an example of a work breakdown structure that has 4 levels. The number of levels provided is dependent on the nature, size, and complexity of the project being planned. It's important to note that each descending level represents an increasingly detailed definition of the project work. This allows work to be allocated to the appropriate people working on the project. This slide provides some rules to follow to determine the level of detail required in a work breakdown structure. At this stage, the activities for a project have been determined, but only identifying activities is insufficient in planning a project. The dependencies between the activities or tasks must also be shown because things aren't always done in sequence, and some tasks may be dependent on the completion of other tasks. These dependencies can be shown with a network diagram. In this example, there are 12 tasks with a number of dependencies. For example, task 3 cannot be done until task 2 is complete. Similarly, task 8 cannot be done until tasks 4 and 5 are complete. There are also several tasks which can be carried out concurrently. For example, tasks 2, 5 and 6 can be done at the same time. Similarly, tasks 9 and 10 can be carried out at the same time. Providing this dependency information can allow for the most efficient allocation of resources on specific tasks and the most efficient path to completing tasks within a project. Once activities and dependencies have been identified, some estimates need to be prepared to work out how long tasks will take and what resources will be needed to complete the tasks. A number of estimating techniques are available to assist with this process. Sometimes estimators can use a single number. Sometimes estimators can use a 3-point estimating technique, where they look at the best case scenario and the worst case scenario, and they average it out to give the most likely scenario. There are also a number of other estimating techniques which can be viewed at the link provided. Page 118 of the textbook also provides some tips to consider when estimating. The next step in the planning process is to prepare the schedule because you are equipped with the appropriate information required to come up with a timeline and a credible resourcing plan. Scheduling can be presented in a number of ways in a project. It can be done manually or by using a computer-based planning and control tool, such as a Gantt chart, critical path diagram, or spreadsheet. Here's an example of a simple Gantt chart representing the activities involved in building a house. It can be created using various tools. On the left are the tasks that need to be carried out to build the house. Across the top, the timing shown in terms of months. This particular project is expected to take 5 months. The final and most important thing shown is what tasks need to be carried out at certain points in time, how long they are expected to take, whether there are any dependencies amongst particular tasks, and certain milestones within the project. So Gantt charts can provide a rich representation of things that need to be done in a project. Here's an example of a critical path diagram. It shows some dependencies between tasks, similar to a network diagram. A critical path diagram also shows the duration of tasks. For example, assuming all durations are in days for this scenario, A equals 1 means activity A has a duration of 1 day. This also provides sufficient information to determine how long it would take to complete a project. At this point in the planning process, we can determine what risks may impact the project. The risks must be evaluated and the plan adjusted where necessary. Further detail about risk will be provided in the risk theme topic. The final step in the planning process is to document the plan that has been developed as per the design that was agreed to in the first step. The plan records all of the key aspects and also provides some explanation as to why the approach being recommended is the right one.